What day is it with Seth and Kelly? Hey everyone, welcome back to What Day Is It?
Welcome back, guys. I hope you're all hanging in there. This is episode 8 of What Day Is It with Seth and Kelly. Crazy!
I know, I don't know where the time has gone. I can't believe it's been 8 weeks already since we started this project.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
But how are you doing, Kelly?
I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there. I mean, things are a bit hectic right now because I'm moving in like 11 days, so kind of crazy. But I'm moving to Astoria, and I've always wanted to live there, so I'm really excited. And other than that, I don't know. I'm just so ready for this whole quarantine life to be over, but we don't know when that's going to be. So,
well, they're starting phase 1 on Monday, so I did put out the final song of my song cycle today. It's called We Will Get Through This, and I believe we will. And I'm actually kind of relieved to not have to record a full song, get it up before we do the talk show. So I think starting next week, I'll be a little bit calmer. We have finally have people watching, so of course, let's play the theme song one more time. What day is it with Seth and Kelly? It makes me sad that people miss theme song. And I do have me here.
Whenever I hear his little meow, I'm like immediately just like, wait, where is he in the frame today? I'm like trying to find him.
He's here for now. I don't know if he's going to stay. I don't think he's going to stay for the whole episode, but I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he's here right now. I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. This is a very serious topic. Usually, of course, Kelly and I are more into light-hearted topics, I think. But, we thought it was very important, especially this week. I mean, we had planned this episode weeks ago, so the timing is just...
But everything kind of spiked and became more serious after we planned this episode, shockingly. So actually, I feel like this is the perfect time to talk about something like this. And a lot of people are scared and hurt right now. And I just think, using this as a platform to help our voices be heard and explain how we're feeling, I think could only be a really healthy, amazing thing for people, and to, spread understanding and let people know that they're not alone. I mean, I kind of feel like this is kind of what we've been trying to do with the show since quarantine started, right, Seth? Like, just to say, hey, if you're going crazy in quarantine, so are we.
Yeah, exactly. Kelly's mom says hello. So, hi, Maureen. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
I'm just going to keep breathing. Our guests are wonderful. We were having such an interesting topic in the green. I call it the green room. It's the same thing, except we weren't live. And I was like, oh my God, guys, save this for the show. This is great.
Oh, yay. I'm so excited to talk to our guests today. And obviously, this is a topic that's so important right now. It's affecting everyone. And I really am really excited to talk to people and understand their experiences, and also talk about our own feelings on everything. And I'm sure, Seth, you've been struggling and feeling hurt. I mean, you and I were talking about this the other night about how everything is so crazy right now. I mean, I honestly just think we all just want to be loved and accepted, right? We all just want peace. And it really feels sometimes like, is that going to happen? We don't know. And it's kind of scary to live in that kind of uncertainty.
Well, I think it's important to fight for it in any way we can. I think there are different ways to go about that. And I think our way is to provide a platform for our friends to talk about. But since we're going to ask our guests today to be open and vulnerable, I thought it was only fair that, we start with being open and vulnerable ourselves. So I just want to talk a little bit about anti-Semitism, because as a Jewish person, I unfortunately know a bit about anti-Semitism. And, it's similar, because everything we're going to talk about today is people hating us for something we can't control, something in the way we were born. And of course, the difference with anti-Semitism is, I can occasionally hide my Jewishness. I mean, I think the beard maybe gives it away a little, but, I can pretend to just be a white person, and that is not a luxury that our guests tonight have. But I do feel anti-Semitism has gotten a lot worse under our president, who is clearly himself anti-Semitic and clearly a white supremacist himself. I think his father was in the Nazi Party. I think I read somewhere, not that I know if that's true or not. But it's very scary times, and I think in the last few years it's gotten worse, and not just here, also in Europe. There's a lot of swastikas, and of course there was that shooting in the temple, which was they just shot old people. Like, what, I don't understand what the point of that is, or what that helps or anything. But it's terrifying times. And as I told Kelly the other day, I didn't know she didn't know. My grandparents on my father's side were Holocaust survivors, and I grew up knowing about the Holocaust all my life, but not really quite kind of grasping it quite so much until maybe I was 13. I did a report on anti-Semitism for my bar mitzvah, and maybe that is where I started to realize is you want to insulate children from all this. You just want them to be loved and to think that there's a place for them in the world. But at some point, your eyes get open to this sort of thing. And my grandmother was a remarkable woman, and she told her story everywhere who wanted her to tell it. She went to high school. She went to temples. She was interviewed by Steven Spielberg's. I don't know. I don't think it was him, but he had a project. She's in a couple of books on it. She did newspaper interviews. She did a great interview with Kane University, which is available online. And she could just tell this horrible story about how half of her family was murdered and how she was living in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen for years. And like, as her grandson, it was just so hard to be like, here's my grandmother who I love so much, and she cooks for us on our holidays, but here was a whole other life that she had, and that was hard. And so I went to go to Auschwitz, Poland. I saw a bunch of camps in 2016, and it turned out that she died 2 months before the trip I was planning to go on. And the woman who runs the trip was like, I think it would be great if you gave a tribute to your grandmother at Auschwitz. And I was like, okay. And so I did this like 12-minute speech about her life, and I was like crying. I don't know how she would do this sometimes every week she would go and talk about this. And I was like tears streaming down my face, which you can see. I did put it up on my YouTube. There's a whole grandmother tribute playlist with a couple songs, an instrumental piece I wrote at the Majdanek concentration camp, a few songs I wrote for my grandmother about her life and stuff. But that was hard. But like, we do hear about that sort of thing. We don't hear about my mom's parents were both born in New York. My great-grandparents immigrated into this country. And in the 40s, there was a lot of anti-Semitism in America, and I don't think a lot of people realize that or talk about it. Like, my grandfather told me once that the only way he could get a job was by saying he was Protestant. And like, even his Catholic friend had to say that he was Protestant, because there was a lot of bigotry towards both Jews and Catholics, especially I think Irish in the 1940s. And then of course my grandfather served in the war for World War II. But like, there are videos of Madison Square Garden packed with Nazis, and I saw one video that was like, you'd think this might be Germany, but it's actually New York City. And I think it's terrifying that I think this country has such a level of racism and bigotry that is always lingering under the surface. It's like, Sondheim talks about it in Assassins, his musical. It's the other side of the American dream, that if you're telling everyone they can have everything they want, then it's just not true. It's a lie, because there are people who are not going to have what they want. So I think those people get angry and frustrated, and if they see other people not like them, like the Jews or whatever running the media or whatever, they see that those people have what we want. I think that's a lot of that stems from the anti-Semitism in Europe. Like, the Jewish people, they were bankers and lenders because there were laws saying they couldn't have other jobs. Like, so they fell into these jobs because they were the only jobs they were allowed to have, and that fed into the whole stereotype of Jews and money. And even one of my friends at college who is Jewish, he was shocked that I didn't come from money. Like, because there I was at MIT, a fancy college, and he was like, he said one comment one day, and I was like, I don't come from money. My family's very middle class. I took out lots of student loans to go through college and grad school. And even him, who was Jewish, had this like stereotypical view. And I think that, it's horrible. And I think that the
Right.
cure to that sort of thing is not, I see people posting on social media and they're like, if you don't agree with me on this subject, then I don't want to be your friends. You should defriend me right now. And a lot of woke people have this reaction. And I don't think that is helpful. I think what is helpful is a dialogue, is a conversation, is bringing people onto a platform like this and listening. So that's all I'm going to talk about the whole episode. I'm ready to listen. This is my listening face.
Yes, me too. I'm ready to listen to. And I think, honestly, like what it comes down to is all of us just wanting to be treated the same and respected. And like you said, Seth, we should not be treated differently for something that is out of our control. It's ridiculous. I don't agree with it. I think it's insane. And I can't relate to, obviously, being Jewish because I'm not, I'm Irish, and I can't relate to the Black community and all the hardships they're going through right now as a white woman. But I think one way I could relate is through my sexuality because I'm bisexual. And so gay rights are something that have always meant a lot to me. And, when I was dating my ex-girlfriend, I've always been a little uncomfortable sort of because I was afraid, what if someone was, anti-gay people? What if, I'm kissing my girlfriend in front of people? And what if someone says something? And, I've had people stare more often than not when I've been in straight relationships. And it's been hard too, especially before gay marriage was legalized. I mean, it hurt my feelings to think, what if I end up with a woman and I just want to be with her forever and we're not even allowed to get married? And in a way, like my sexuality is a part of me. It's something that I can't control. It's something that, it wasn't a choice I made. It's who I am. And to hear that I'm not allowed to be loved for who I am, I cannot relate to the Black community with how they're feeling because I haven't gone through what they've gone through for years and years and years. But I can relate to the feeling of feeling less than for something that's a part of myself. And I think that's something so important that we need to talk about. We all have these vulnerabilities. We all have these times where we felt put down for not being, what society expects us to be. And I honestly think that is something that shouldn't even be the case anymore and should have never been the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I'm so excited to talk to our guests today and hear their stories and just to give everyone a chance to just speak about their personal experiences and how we're all feeling right now. Because I think, people think that being vulnerable they think that's like a weakness, right? It's like, no, we have to be strong. We have to be strong. And now is a time to be strong, but it's also a time to understand that it's okay to be sad too. And it's okay to be scared, And I think those aren't weaknesses. I think those are very true feelings that a lot of us are feeling right now and sometimes afraid to express, So
yeah.
I'm really,
well,
I know
I
that.
For one, I'm looking forward to our guests today to hear what
too.
they have to say and
Absolutely.
to try to get out of our own, perspectives and our own, they're valid perspectives, but I think it's good to see other people's and to try to imagine life from their side of things so that we can be educated and do
that's
better.
the important thing about this is education. We should be educating ourselves on this, and it's important. That's why it's so important to speak about it. So I'm really excited. I feel like today is going to be a really important episode that can hopefully help people,
Oh, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
All right. Our first guest. Oh, it's your line.
Oh, it's mine. Okay, so our first guest today is a webcomic artist, voice actor, and an amateur puppeteer. The day before quarantine started, his puppet troupe and where he was scheduled to perform a Sesame Street style show for Mount Sinai's Children's Network, and they are patiently waiting for the day when they can actually go back to entertaining the kids at the hospital.
When not acting like a big goof in front of a camera or microphone, he takes every opportunity he can to travel. I love traveling too. And he even spent an entire year living in a vagabond lifestyle, visiting almost every national park and backpacking around the world. That's so cool. Please welcome Wilson Toe.
Hey guys.
Wilson, thanks so much for being here. I absolutely love traveling as well.
Yeah, same here. And that's the best part of one of the best parts of traveling is really exposing yourself to other cultures and meeting people that you've never met before. and learning parts of their lives, which is so important, especially now, since like we need to listen to others and share experiences and learn from each other. But yeah. So how are you guys doing?
We're good. We're hanging in there. Will, how have you been feeling during this whole crazy quarantine time? How are you adjusting with things? And I know things are pretty crazy right now, but
yeah. When I first heard that you guys were gonna talk about racism, there were a lot of things that I really wanted to talk about. You know, one being with the beginning of COVID, and me being Asian American, how it affected me and like the people, my friends and like my family members, and seeing all the racist attacks. Just, you know, because we're Asian American and we just like automatically got blamed for the virus. And this wasn't just in the United States. This was basically all around the world. Every Asian person got blamed for it. And we are just sitting here just wondering, like, we had nothing to do with it. We had nothing to do with this virus. So why are we being attacked? Why are we being verbally attacked? Why are we like being physically attacked? And you know, for the first time in my life, I felt like the entire Asian American community got together and became vocal about this. And we like, you know, started all these campaigns, including racism is a virus, you know, just to let people know that, you know, COVID-19 does not discriminate. Doesn't matter who you are. Like, if you're gonna get exposed to it, you're gonna get it. And like, and then we started the Wash the Hate campaign. So just to like let people know that same thing. Like, you know, just because we're Asian does not mean we have the virus. Does not mean we're the carriers of the virus. Does not mean that we're the ones who started the virus, especially here in the States. And I've heard stories from my friends where they had to experience, like even in New York City alone, like you think such a progressive city.
mm-hmm.
All the stories that they just like people coming up to them, you know, yelling at them, telling them to go back to their own country when they were actually born here in this country. Like kids at school, when I thought, you know, bullying was no longer going to be an issue, kids at school being bullied for being Asian. Like one of my friends actually had a kid come back crying to their mothers, you know, saying like, I don't want to be Chinese anymore. I don't want to be Chinese anymore. I don't. How can you tell? You know, what can you say to a child when, you know, when they're being exposed to this environment? There's so much I want to say about this, but given what's happened lately, I don't think I can really, you know, talk about this, because there are, with the Black Lives movement, that Black Lives Matter movement, this is definitely way more important.
Absolutely.
And I just sorry, I'm just getting really flustered right now. But
No,
I
there goes
look
the
at
cat, but don't take it personally.
Yeah, don't take me leaving personally. He leaves every video.
Yeah, he can't hear anything,
know.
so he's like, Patty's just staring off into nothing.
He's like, I'm done. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
he's gone.
But I look at the image of like the George Floyd murder, and it's so unfortunate that you saw, you know, Officer Chauvin kneeling on his neck, legit murdering him, and then the officer standing in front of him, an Asian officer, I forget his name, Thu Thao or something,
Mm-hmm.
standing there like in front of people while this murder is taking place in the background. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like, this image alone, it's like a New Yorker cartoon. It's like this is what's happening right now, that the Black community is crying out for help, and they're being suppressed. And us as an Asian community, we cannot be like that officer where we just stand idly by and watch someone get murdered and just ignore someone getting murdered behind us. And like, even as an Asian community, we all came together and we denounced his actions. We said, he's not us, he's not one of ours. And right now, a lot of people in the Asian community, like, even though they are really angry at how people treated us during COVID-19, and we were screaming out and we were asking for allies, we realize now that, like, we have to be there for the Black community as well. If we want allies to support us, we need to support our allies. Because when it comes down to it, like, we're all minorities. We all face oppression. We've all faced racism in one way or another, in one form or another. But it cannot compare to 400 years of oppression that the Black community faced.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way we can, like, support them is to really understand where they're coming from. And yeah, just banding together. And like, that's why, like, I see so many like Instagram posts now from like Asian communities saying, the yellow peril supports Black power, with an image of a tiger and a Black Panther together. And I think that's a very, very like powerful image right there. Because if we want people to respect us and see us as humans, we have to help others, fight for that same goal. Because in the end, that's all we really want, is for all of us to be treated like equal human beings. Not my face is not the representation of a virus. Their face is not a representation of a criminal. And like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting so flustered because like, I feel like I have so many words and so many thoughts I want to say out, but like, just. Yeah.
Well, I thought that was beautifully said, and
I agree.
And honestly, especially the fact that, you obviously can 100% relate, especially to things that were happening before this, of course. And the fact that, your communities are banding together, we should all band together regardless of our race, obviously. But I think that's such a beautiful, powerful statement. And I think that was all beautifully said and so powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Also,
Wesley Todd Holiday says, "This is powerful. Thank you for having this conversation."
Thank you, Wesley. Thanks for tuning in. I really hope we could just help people have a voice right now and just help just show some love and understanding, because I really think that's what everybody really needs right now the most. I've been seeing so many scary things happening, especially with personal friends of mine that have just been breaking my heart. So, Will, hearing your story was really inspiring, and it was so brave of you to talk about it. Also, on a lighter note, Will is a really talented voice actor and puppeteer. And didn't you use your puppet for that wash your hands movement that you did?
Yeah, it was basically one of my friends, like her and her friends started the Wash the Hate campaign at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was basically, they had a bunch of Asian celebrities and a bunch of like Asian leaders wash their hands for 20 seconds and speak about their own experiences with racism. And for some reason I decided, you know what, I don't want to put my face on camera, and I just want to keep things lighthearted. So I used my puppet to basically just, it's a very simple message. Don't be an asshole. Be nice to each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You would think you wouldn't have to reiterate it so much. Like, be kind to other people. Think about what the other person would go through.
Kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? Like, be nice to people, treat them equally. Like, this is America. Like, we're supposed to. It's like the land of the free, right? Wasn't that the point? It's just crazy. And honestly, I really I think that's like really great that you did that. And I mean, Will and I actually became friends because I saw his puppet video and I was like, this is adorable and super entertaining. But I didn't realize that it was actually for that campaign, which is really, really cool. And that's also using, you know, art in a way to, and as Seth knows, we have tons of artists on the show all the time. I'm sure everyone today is also an artist. I read the bios. So I think we could definitely, and we've been trying to, we could definitely use art right now as a way to speak out about this as well. So that's so cool that you were able to do that with that campaign.
Yeah. And like right now, social media is such an important tool, especially for this movement. Because
Definitely.
like I know one of the things that like the Asian community is doing to, okay, so basically like the older generation, they're not as free thinking as the younger generation. Because like they're immigrants. They came here, you know, and they lived in a very homogenized community. Like, you know, they're like Chinatown here, Chinatown in Queens, or like they stuck with each other. And prejudice, yeah, it happens. And so majority of the older generation, they do have that prejudice against Black people. And they just, you know, I mean, I'm not proud to admit that like sometimes like my parents when I was growing up, they told me like, don't go to the Bronx, don't go to Brooklyn. They won't flat out say why, but like it's dangerous up there. It's like, why is it dangerous? Why? So the Asian community right now, they're actually, and the majority of them don't speak English. So the Asian community right now actually, they're starting to post these statements up in both English and whatever Asian language, Japanese, Chinese, Thai, you know, all these languages to show to the older generation that this is why we're standing up for the Black Lives Matter movement. Because even though, yes, we are all minorities and like, yes, we all go through the same struggles, we all go through the same type of oppressions. Our skin does not, you know, we don't have to worry about going out and being, you know, looked at and say, oh, wait, he's a threat. And we don't have to worry about getting shot by the cops. Like, we have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
The Black community, they don't have that luxury. And if anything, like the stereotype for Asians are, you know, they're passive. They're just, you know, oh, don't worry about the Asian guy. He's not going to do anything. He's not a criminal. Don't worry about him. But like, that's why we have to basically band together and just say, this isn't right. This is not right. It really doesn't matter what your skin color is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, we're really trying to convince like the older generation to, you know, look at it from our point of view.
Yeah, and to understand that, you know, that's not the case anymore. That's how, unfortunately, that's what happened so long ago. But like that's different now. We now need to love each other. We are all equal. We've always all been equal. I mean, and it's really sad that it's still a problem and it's still happening. And it really, I think it was great to hear from your perspective as someone who's Asian and how you could relate and how your personal experiences have been. So I thought everything that you said was really powerful. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, thank you, Will. We'll bring you back for our roundtable discussion. Yes. We're going to move on to our second guest tonight.
Yeah.
Today, not tonight. I'm so used to doing shows at night. Our next guest today is a performer, patient, family advocate, and creative writing MST student at Zoom University, formerly known as the University of Cambridge. That's because all our classes are in Zoom. After fleeing to the other side of the country, and later on the other side of the world to distance herself from her home state of Georgia, she is there once again, sheltering in place with her family.
Her current projects include an illness narrative and an oral history dissertation that questions the ethics of plantation resorts and weddings. She doesn't know how she can execute the latter when it requires travel and face-to-face interviews, but Cambridge is optimistic.
She is also doing a residency at the Archer Project's Liveness Lab, which explores how transmedia can be used to reimagine the parameters of live performance. A hidden talent of hers is behaving like there is a pandemic going on instead of joining the unmasked masses at local malls, cinemas, and clubs.
Pandemic pastimes include staring out the window, me too, not being nearly as productive as she planned, and avoiding a mental breakdown, me too. She has an honorary PhD in being a token Black American. Please welcome
Linseigh Green.
Hello.
Hey, Linseigh.
Hi.
Thanks for chatting
So
with
good
us
to see
today.
you.
You too.
So I'm so glad you're talking with us today. So you're currently in school right now, studying as a student?
Yes. So I'm currently at Cambridge, but for this foreseeable future, I will be completing my studies virtually. So that's been a little bit interesting because there's been a time difference. And so for lectures, you have to wake up really early because everyone else is in the UK.
Oh, that's horrible.
We also have a student who's in Hong Kong. So there's a total of 12 hours separating us. So some of us are waking up, right? And then when classes are over, then the girl in Hong Kong is going to bed.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That must be so interesting, like kind of going to like virtual college. I would have never, like I've taken one online course and you said you don't like it?
No, I don't.
Oh, I mean, it's probably hard too because of all the studying, just having to like stare at a screen for everything.
Yeah.
Like, which is what we're all doing anyway. But yeah.
Sarah says, "Hi, Linseigh. I loved your comment about Zoom University."
Thank you. I should really get some swag, like a nice sweatshirt.
Zoom University. That's so crazy. Have you had any interesting experiences, like being a virtual student right now? Like, how has it been like really different?
I think we're really missing that immersion. There really is something about the connection between a lecturer or an instructor and the students, especially if you're in a kind of class like mine where there's a lot of real discussion and immersion, and we have workshops. And my program at Cambridge is interesting because it works on a model of intensives. So we all go to this really old Renaissance era manor, and we stay there for about a week. And it's instructors and students all under the same roof. We have our meals together. We're together from about 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. until sometimes as late as 10 p.m. And we just have back-to-back classes and workshops. And so it's interesting because you learn probably the most valuable stuff from sharing a meal with a guest lecturer, for instance, from having a drink with them in the bar. And so we're really missing that when we're all just on Zoom, right? Yeah. So I think that in that respect, we felt like we were missing quite a bit.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I learned the other day you can actually raise your hand on Zoom. You click a little button and it gives you a little hand. Like
no one did that. We just raised our hand. We had, gallery view.
No.
It's like, okay, so Zoom has gallery view, where you can see everyone at once, right? So if you raise your hand, then the instructor can call on you. But the other thing about gallery view, right, is that you can't make a face. Like, how in class you might make a face that like your friend. You can't do that in Zoom gallery view. If you make a face, everybody sees it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You have to be very formal, I'm sure.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be a little stressful.
If you're tired,
Oh my God, yeah. I could imagine. I mean, I do online teaching, so it's kind of like I'm just used to speaking to a student one-on-one. So, but Zoom is a crazy thing because it's kind of like it kind of rotates the people usually. But I never heard of this gallery Zoom. That's interesting. So Linseigh, how have you been feeling during the pandemic? How are you holding up with everything? Just feel free to whatever.
Ringing trees outside my house. But yeah, with the pandemic, I'm just trying to hold it together. It's been really difficult. I think, it's especially like in my house, we have a medically vulnerable relative, and she's been having a difficult time for about a month. So we had about a month over a month in which every other week we had paramedics coming to the house. So that also happened during class, and there's paramedics coming through. So it's just very traumatic. So it's been rough. but I've been trying to figure out ways to kind of cope with it. And what's really difficult is generally for my mental health, to give myself a boost, I would go out and do something. Go to see a live performance, go to a museum, go for a walk or to a cafe. I can't do that now. So I had to figure out new ways to kind of cope and to take care of myself. And I'm still working on that, I think.
Yeah, me too. I feel like that's kind of what we've all been doing during this whole situation. It's like, how do we keep ourselves sane? And it's hard with everything being so stressful right now, for sure.
Yeah, and there's this added stress right now of just, I don't even know what to call it, just the mess that's currently happening with, you know, tear gas being used on peaceful protesters, and just it's a lot, and it's stressful.
Yeah,
it's very stressful.
It's definitely stressful, and also just to see on social media, just people, just like the fights happening back and forth all the time. It's kind of like, even when, you know, COVID started, I feel like everything was tense, and this just took it up to like a whole new level, which isn't possible for any of us.
Every single month, you know, they were going to throw something else in there. It had the murder hornets. Now there's this.
I know, right? Like, I've been seeing memes that are like, are dinosaurs gonna like start roaming the earth again next? Because
nervous for July.
I'm nervous for July too. It's 2020 started out being a really good year for me, and then all of a sudden it's been a really bad year for everyone. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like everyone is just tense right now, and there's a lot of anxiety and fear, especially with the job situation. And I think that a match was thrown into all this firewood, and it's just, I mean, it was going to explode at some point, I think, no matter what. I think
I'm also really anxious because I think when it came out that it's not just people who are over the age of 80 who are dying from this, right? It can be young people as well. And then also the CDC, you know, released the list of the vulnerable groups. And then I found out that I mark a couple of boxes because I'm immunocompromised, I'm asthmatic. And then suddenly I realized, oh, if I get this thing, it could be more than just like a crappy ride for a couple of weeks. This could be something that could permanently impact my life. And I already have enough health issues that I'm dealing with. I don't need more. I don't need more.
Yeah.
You see people posting who are in denial about that. And it's like, I don't know where they're living, like in a bubble or something. Like, I was talking to one today, he's in Utah. I guess they don't have very many deaths in Utah from this, but oh my gosh, if you're in New York City and you're still in denial about it, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
I know. And I love what you said too about the social distancing thing, because like, I really think I see a lot of people breaking social distancing. I'm seeing it more and more, especially with the weather being nicer. Like, there's people that are like out having drinks at bars, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Like, you're putting everybody else at risk, you know? Like, so it's honestly, it's so silly. I think we could, like, you know, put our summer festivities aside for now. You know what I mean? Like, we could wait a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. So how have you been feeling with everything going on, with all the craziness? How are you coping? Like, like, honestly, no pressure to talk about like anything you don't want to talk about. We're just all like saying how we feel right now.
So I've just been taking things day by day. I think that, I guess, to give a good honest perspective of how I feel on this, I think it's really important that I kind of start with who I am in this greater context, right? So first of all, starting with the fact that it's crazy that I'm a Cambridge student and I'm a Black American. Let's just start there, right? During my matriculation ceremony, I was sitting at dinner and I was looking around at this Hogwarts place, and I was thinking, it's crazy that I'm here considering my family's history. I'm in Georgia right now. My family's been in Georgia since slavery. And they were not allowed to read or write. My great-grandfather was the very first free generation in my family, and he was a Mason. He built the Black enclave that he lived in, but he also built very large homes for white clients. He helped to found the NAACP chapter in his area. He was a very well-known peaceful activist. He built the schoolhouse because children in the area were not allowed to attend the white schools and they needed to learn somewhere. And then he also had to then go on to fight to get that school recognized by the county because they could not get the proper books and resources they needed. They were studying astronomy through the slits in the roof, and they were, studying botany through the slits in the floorboards. And so even though I really admire this man, it did not exactly translate into the greater world around him. He was not treated with the dignity that I believe that he deserved. One time he was working on a house for one older white woman, and she served him lunch, and he asked, why is the dog barking at me while I'm eating? And she said, well, you're eating out of his bowl. His brother was lynched when they went down to Florida to help clean up after a hurricane. And a man had asked them to help clean up his farm. And then as soon as they arrived on the farm, he turned around on them and said, you know what, get off my lawn, get out of my property. His brother was lynched, and then he ran all the way back to Atlanta on foot. So this was just their reality. My grandmother growing up had the Ku Klux Klan. They had regular parades through her neighborhood. They couldn't call the police because the police was escorting the Ku Klux Klan as they were terrorizing them. I mean, that was their reality. My mom grew up under Jim Crow, so I'm the first generation in my family to grow up without that. She had to go to segregated schools after Brown versus Board. In the 1970s, when she wanted to apply for university, schools like UGA actually were still not they were discouraging Black students from applying, and they actually told students that if you go anywhere but here, we'll pay your tuition. So students were taking advantage of that, and then, of course, applying on purpose. They can get a free ride elsewhere. So I always thought, how lucky am I to be born in the late 90s and to live in this kind of world. But that still does not mean that things are perfect, right? So I learned about race as a thing and racism when I was 4 years old. And I think that I've heard a lot of people say that, why would you want to expose your kids to something like that when they're that young? That's too dark for them. Black parents don't have an option, right? Either you prepare them for the world or they're going to find out the hard way. Because when I was 5, that's when I experienced racism for the first time. But it's also important when we teach anti-racism to kids from a very young age as well. But I still thought that it was something that kind of existed not in a vacuum, but I still thought that racism was kind of like a one-off, like that most people were fine, that it was kind of an anomaly. But then when I was 12, that's when I learned that I was a threat. And that's when I started to go into stores and have people accuse me of stealing. People would follow me around. You start to realize that when you walk inside of a store, a salesperson will look at you, run to their manager, get the manager comes out and follows you, asks you questions, accuses you of something. And I started to be so afraid to go shopping after that I started making my parents go in with me, or I tried to dress a certain kind of way to prove that I belonged there, to prove that I deserved to be treated like a normal customer. Even in hotels that I was a paying customer at, or paying guest, I was often blocked from entering hotels that I was staying in London, in New York, in Paris. I've almost been thrown out of hotel lobbies after showing my room key. And it does not matter how you act. It does not matter if you're one of the good ones, right? Either way, people are still going to have this idea of who you are. And that idea speaks louder sometimes than who you are as an individual. And to be Black, and I think maybe to even be a person of color in general in this country and in a lot of countries, you find yourself constantly trying to assert, your right to that individuality. And I think that the most difficult part, though, is when that starts to put you in danger, right? Yep. So I grew up in Georgia. When you drive through areas with lots of Confederate flags, you just learn to lock your doors. You don't get out. You don't stop to use the restroom or to get gas. One time I went to this little town called Helen, which my mom's coworker said was this really cute place. They have lots of little shops. It's historical. And when we parked there, We were about to go pay, but the attendant was gone. And my mom said, Lindsay, get out your phone and film me putting the money in the box. And I said, well, there's a security camera right there. And she said, no, Lindsay, film me with the phone. So I did. And after we walked around for a while, we got a lot of weird stares. People treated us really poorly. And we just got kind of fed up. We went back to the car. And when we were going back to the parking lot, we saw this white pickup truck blocking our car in. And this man was just standing there waiting for us with his arms folded. And we were scared. But we just carefully got in our car. And he walked up to the window. We asked him if he could move the car, and he told us that we didn't pay. He kept accusing us of not paying. And then eventually I said, hey, do you want me to show him the video on the phone? And then once I mentioned the phone, then all of a sudden he went away and he let us out. And then my mom and I started crying because the way that man looked at us, there's a kind of look that only certain people in this country will ever understand. And it's like someone looks at you like your life is totally meaningless. It's like the way that I look at a bug that I want to kill. And when somebody looks at you that way, then you realize that this person thinks that my life does not have value. This person thinks that they could potentially have control over whether or not I continue to exist or whether or not I continue to be safe. And that is the scariest feeling in the world and the most helpless feeling. And I think when we say Black Lives Matter, that is what we mean. We don't mean that only Black Lives Matter. We mean that we need to remind people that our lives also have inherent value and that we're not disposable. And so now I think it's really interesting because even though this is a very scary and traumatic moment for, I think, most of us, not just Black people, but for a lot of people that care. It's a little bit exciting to see how this is gaining traction all over the world now. We're seeing protests in every single state. We're seeing protests in so many different countries. I have a lot of international friends who are saying, oh, I'm just hearing about this Black Lives Matter thing. And they don't realize this has been around for a long time. But now all of a sudden, just a couple of weeks ago, if you said Black Lives Matter, right, that was one of the most controversial things that you could say. Colin Kaepernick lost his career over kneeling. And now you see people kneeling at protests all over the world. You see cops kneeling. You see members of the National Guard kneeling. And so while part of me also wonders, why now? Why all of a sudden are people who were before silent suddenly saying Black Lives Matter? I mean, I'm glad that you're here. Welcome. It's a little bit exciting because it makes me wonder what the future might look like. And especially the international aspect of this excites me. And it reminds me of in the 1960s, the civil rights movement was essentially a global PR movement. Mm-hmm. So it was not about getting the US necessarily to care enough to give us our rights. It was about putting that pressure. What does it look like when the world starts to see images that are being circulated by the press of peaceful Black protesters who are being attacked by dogs, who are being shot, who are being arrested? When the rest of the world sees that, then they say, oh, well, we thought that the US was supposed to stand for equality and justice and liberty, but this doesn't seem to match up, which is also really bad, right? Because this was the Cold War, and that gave Russia ammunition to use against the US. And that's ultimately what pressured the US into passing the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. So when we do get that international attention, it really does make a difference. And that's, I think, why I'm really excited.
Yeah. That was beautifully said, Lindsay. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
That was great.
I mean, really powerful. And thank you for sharing the story with your mom, because honestly, I really think personal experiences are the most important to share. And people are going to make assumptions, like you've said, and you've dealt with that since you were little. And until you start to speak about those personal experiences, some people just aren't going to wake up and realize that. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that.
I mean, I've been friends with you for years, and I didn't know any of that, and I pretty much almost started to cry. But Wesley said, hearing Lindsay speak is so connected to my story. My grandmother was the daughter of sharecroppers and granddaughter of slaves. My parents both remember drinking at a colored water fountain as children, and the first in both of their families to go to college. America should see how far and not far we have come. Thank you for sharing your story, Lindsay.
Yes, thank you. It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'm going to need some tissues at some point. All right. So I think it is a good time for us to move on to our final guest. We'll bring you back, Lindsay, at the end of the show.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you again so much. That was very powerful. I think you have the first line there for the final guest.
So our final guest today is a versatile performer, director, and arts educator with a BFA in musical theater from the University of Central Florida Conservatory Theater. A Florida native, he has performed throughout the United States as well as in Paris, Amsterdam, and India, who now calls Lancaster County home.
He is a 6-year veteran of Sight and Sound Theater and a 5-year veteran of Prima Theater, and is the co-founder owner of Bending Threads Cabaret Company based in New York, and his New York credits include the Broadway show Rocktopia, The Wiz at Central Park, Black Nativity, Romeo and Juliet, and Archbishop Supreme Tartuffe.
He has also enjoyed an extensive national tour and regional theater career with his favorite credits including Big River, Smokey Joe's Cafe, Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Seussical the Musical, Jamaica, Guys and Dolls, Is There Life After High School, and Little Shop of Horrors.
He sings and dances his way through every day, literally. I got these from his wife, by the way. He doesn't like the food on his plate to be touching, and he is the proud cat dad to a cat named Molly, who enjoys hanging out by the shower and occasionally jumping in at the end. Please welcome Reji Woods.
Oh.
Hey, Reji.
Hey, how you doing? Here. Absolutely.
Thanks for chatting with us today.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Yeah, I love your background there.
Oh, thank you. My wife's best friend actually painted an accent wall in our house, and this is the wall. So
that's cool. Yeah, I was at that wedding. It was beautiful. It was on a farm. There was like animals there, like sheep and lambs. Maybe.
Sheep weren't at the wedding. They were like in a fence over. Yeah.
There was chocolate fondue and karaoke. And no street lights. I remember driving in Lancaster and being terrified. It was so dark.
Just that part of Lancaster. Yeah, I mean,
Amish country. There were Amish people in little
buggies.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds so pretty. So you're also a cat dad like Seth?
Yes. If I were singing, because whenever I'm lately I've had an opportunity to sing for virtual concerts and that sort of thing, or record for them. Whenever she loves music, she's like a music kitty. So if I start singing, she wants to be picked up and be in my arms when I sing. Or I teach voice lessons. So if some of my students are singing, she jumps into my lap and she like sits and watches. So I'm talking now, so she has nothing to do with me. But if I was singing, she'd come rolling back in. So.
Smee is napping. He's done for the day.
He's done. Smee's always a star on screen with all of Seth's projects.
Right.
You're a music teacher? That's awesome. I'm a music teacher too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I teach voice and beginner piano. Have you been doing that during the whole pandemic experience?
Absolutely, we had to. I was in a show called Queen Esther at Sight and Sound Theaters, and when everything happened with the stay-at-home orders, the show shut down. Like we did 2 preview shows, like our 2 shows leading up to opening, and then we were shut down.
I wonder what that's like.
Yeah, you definitely know what it's like. But I had a student base prior to going back to work at the theater, and so we went without a beat. And actually, some of my students who had to take some time off actually came back because they didn't have to travel in to come for lessons. They could just be on the computer at home, and so it's been a good time getting to kind of work with the kiddos.
Oh, definitely. I feel like being a teacher and working with kids is such an uplifting thing right now, especially during all of this going on. Like, because kids are they're just so excited and just like, it's good to kids. I just feel just bring good energies. I don't know.
And I mean, for me, I think it's a little bit of a double blessing in that I get to work with them and have the experience of spending one-on-one time with them, but it's also a way for me to work with a new generation and for them to have relationship with someone that they probably would not have had relationship with, because our area is a fairly white area. I mean, anyone who lives here knows it, and it's quite evident. but to know that I get to work on a daily basis with kids who may not experience spending time with African Americans, on a weekly basis, sometimes even more than that, to work with me. And we don't just do the music. Like my first thing every time we start is, how are you doing today? How was your, what went on in your life today? Because that is important to me. And they know that they're important to me, then I become important to them. And then the representation of an African American they see won't be what they see in television shows and movies. It won't be what they see on the news. It won't be some of the lies and falsehoods that have been perpetrated about us. They get to see in real life, in real time, what a Black person is, and the love that we give and that's been received. And it's been tremendous for me, because my goal has always been just to be me. And I've always felt like I've been a good person. But even that's not enough in this day and age. And so we were talking in the green room earlier today about how for African Americans, we have to be able to code switch, which means when I'm in this environment, I can be myself. But when I'm in that environment, I have to smile. I have to be friendly. I have to be nice. And sometimes I don't feel that way. But me being a man of my size and stature too, I can't be angry. When I walk into a room or a store, I can't be upset. I can't be angry. I can't frown. I can't have a bad day, because a bad day for me becomes a threat to others. And it's so tiring. It is so tiring. So I'm grateful that I get to combat that in this special way of having one-on-one time. And, when this person has an experience with that person, they can share the positive experiences they've had with African Americans one-on-one directly. And I think it's experiences like that will slowly change things, but I'm glad I'm getting to do it with the next generation, because they're still learning, and they've not turned a blind eye to equality and to the fact that we are so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That's not only the joys of teaching, but it's like, well, it kind of is, but it also shows how similar passions can bring you together as people, which is a beautiful thing. I think those are the things we need to focus on. Those are the things that we need to show kids when they're growing up. And I think that's so beautiful that you found that through your teaching. That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. With all this craziness happening, I honestly feel, especially the fact that you can use your art to have those connections with the younger generation and help them realize, what they're being trained and told is not true. And it's through those personal connections and friendships that you learn that that's not the case. You know what I mean? I just have had so many different people of all races in my life that have just left deep impressions on me from a young age. And I never ever judged people based on that, because I've met so many amazing people of all races. And I think that's the important thing that people need to realize. You know what I mean? So that was
definitely.
It's the most important thing.
Kelly's mom said that's so true, Reji. Reji, you were talking about something before we were live that I'd never heard of before, and I thought it would be good to bring on when we are live. You were saying that you're one of the good ones, and that was the term I had never heard of before.
Oh my gosh. And it was the green room. I'm telling you, we should have recorded some of that.
I know. I was like, no, this is brilliant, but it's okay. We'll bring everyone back.
Yeah. But growing up, I was very blessed to have the mom that I have, because I tell you, she is just one of the most kind and genuine people, and people love her. I was sharing a story earlier about how she worked at the University of Florida, and that's not the most, especially in the 80s, wasn't the most progressive place to be. I dare say some people say it's not the most progressive place to be now. But she had a gentleman that was at the head of the departments that she was a part of, and did not like her, and only because she was African American. And within a year of working there and working with that gentleman, she turned him around. Like, people were amazed that because he wouldn't even speak to her walking into the building to start. And then he would seek her out by the end of not even the whole year, he would seek her out. And I was like, that's the kind of stock I come from. My grandmother and grandfather, they actually on both, my grandmother on both sides, my grandfather on my father's side, were just the kindest people in like that you could ever know. So I saw kindness modeled for me. I saw love for people modeled for me. So of course I'm naturally a happy person. But it's just not a 24-hour thing. But the way that I was raised was to be polite, to speak properly, because my mother could not stand it if I didn't, only because she wanted me to be able to walk in any room and be able to converse with someone and not have a problem.
Yeah.
But that in turn made me one of the good ones. So there were several times where growing up, if you're on one side of the railroad tracks, it was in literal railroad tracks, by the way, there was a Black community. And it was like that's where the doctors and the nurses and the teachers and Black lawyers all lived. And then you go further back where it gets poorer. But then on the other side of the tracks is where the majority of the shops and the white folks, it was in Gainesville, Florida. And oftentimes I would be with my white friends, and that were girls, and I was allowed to come to the house. I was allowed to like spend time. I could go sit in the room and listen to music with them without like someone hovering. And one of my friends said to me one time, oh, because we were like, can such and such come with us? And like, no, you can't. And I was like, oh, well, your mom lets me come over and hang out. And she's like, yeah, but you're one of the good ones. And I was like, one of the good ones. Okay. And I didn't quite get it then. And then I heard it again from a parent. And when Lindsay talks about like that, there are looks that you see looks and you get it. There was this look of disdain, like you're one of the good ones, as if, you know, all the rest of them are just filthy, dirty, awful. You're one of the good ones. But then what that means to me is my entire community surrounding me. What makes me so different? Like that means they're all horrible. They're all nasty. They're all bad. They're criminals. I'm a good one. And it even led into high school. I was sharing that my high school started out as a predominantly Black school. And by the time I graduated, that had kind of evened out and flopped over a little bit. And there was a fight in our commons area. And then I had two white boys actually grab me and pull me into the auditorium right off of the commons. And I was like, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, you don't need to see that. You're not like them. You don't need to be a part of that. And so they were essentially protecting me because I was one of the good ones. And I sat down and unpacked that. And that was when I kind of got like, it's the same thing as, it's like, it feels like carryover from slavery, where there was the house Negro that was given the extra food, that was dressed better, that was allowed to work in the house and not in the field. And then there were the field Negroes who had to work, who were beaten, who did not get better cuts of food or more of it, who did not get the special treatment. And it made me feel dirty. I was like, I don't want to be a good one. I don't want to be a bad one either. I just want to be me. And but that's something that many people deal with in our community, but it's born out of almost it's having to be able to live a dual existence in America is survival in so many ways, because you learn that lesson that, you know, if you want to survive, you learn the lesson that you've got to smile, you've got to not be a threat. That was in my youth. That was naturally who I was. As an adult, and as I, grew taller and grew bigger, and my stature changed from a skinny little kid to a big Black man. It was no longer me on the outside that matched that. So I had to make myself match it. I have to always come in somewhere smiling, no matter what, because I did have the experiences of people literally touching purses, walking across the street. Just my very existence is a threat. It is so difficult to live through that. Through just me existing on this earth is a threat to your way of life. It's a threat to you, and I've never given anything but love. And I had some friends remind me recently. They're like, you're one of the most patriotic people I know. Like, I remember when we were a kid, you sang the Star Spangled Banner at every sporting event that was there. You wrote like essays about the presidency and being president and what's so awesome about America. And they're like, how could people see you as not American? And then that situation too was born out of someone telling me to go back to Africa. I've never been to Africa. I would love to go. Me and my wife talk about it all the time, doing homeland tours. Like, we've done our genealogy and stuff. So to go to the places that our ancestors came from, I would love to go to Africa. But I was born here. I'm an American. This is my home. I had a friend, I think he was joking, but I think part of him was a little bit serious when he was like, I can't go through much more of this. Like, I may have to just go to Canada. And my response was, no, I'm not going anywhere. My ancestors helped build this country. I was born here. This is my home. And this is where I will stay. I'm not going anywhere, and I won't be run away. And it's not out of a sense of being haughty. It's out of a sense of ownership. This is my home. And I'll defend it with everything that I have. And I just wish that everybody understood that the African-American community, we're not trying to suck people dry. I think you can ask any of my friends who know me, I work harder than a grand majority of people, but I was always taught that I had to be successful. I have to do 8 times as much. I have to be 10 times as good because or otherwise I'll get half of what I deserve. And it's those things that I think, yes, I think that the killing of George Floyd has ignited our nation, but it didn't start there.
Yeah.
The Amy Coopers of the world who have existed for centuries, those moments where I know your worth, or in my opinion, your lack of worth, and I know how to take care of it. I can just say this, and then your life is changed, possibly taken away. I know the power that I have over you. That living in that, having to be a part of that has been the thing that I think is like the kindling that has been under igniting the fire, and the George Floyd lit it. And now not just the US, but the world is seeing the light. There's light shining on all that has gone wrong now. And that's why people are getting together. And my whole thing is, I want to share this to even the people in the Black community. I know we are tired of having to explain. We're tired of having to, in every walk of our life, be the example of our entire race, represent our entire race. I've had to do it since I was a child. I know we're tired, but now is not the time to be weary, because people want to know now. Where there was no interest before, they're asking, how can I help? Don't turn a blind eye to them. Don't be so tired that you can't tell them how they can help. Don't send them to Google. Yeah, you're tired, but don't send them to Google. Now is the time for us to stand together. And if people want education, by golly gee, if I have to go horse giving it, I will give it, because in the long run, it's going to make things better. People are asking now. Now is the time. We have people who are being allies, not just with word, but with deed. And that's what matters most. And that's what's been mattering. And that's what we've needed for the longest time. I'm so grateful that we're finally seeing it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Reji. That was beautiful. And I honestly never even considered, like, just the fact that you were raised the way you were raised has made you even feel like separated from your own race. I mean, that's insane. Like, that was something I've never even thought of. And that's a crazy statement right there. So I don't know what else. I just want to thank you for everything you said.
Yeah, I've been friends with you for over a decade, and I didn't know a lot of that stuff. So
But it's
Because
sorry that I never asked
can't now.
earlier.
You know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah, well, it's the stuff that we don't talk about. It's the stuff that and like we had earlier, we said something about there are so many the commonalities. Like there's so many more things that make us common than set us apart from each other. And we focused on those commonalities. We didn't focus on the things that made us different. But now is the time. Now is the time to get to know that and learn that. And I have to say, Seth, I never once felt anything but support from you. Like,
No.
so know that that's never been an issue that I felt like I had to bring up to you. And I've had friendships where I've had to be like, okay, this is toxic. And if we don't fix it now, then we won't be able to be friends. I've never had that with you. So there's a reason to talk about these things, but I'm grateful that we get to talk about them now because they do.
This is a great time to bring everybody back.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, guys.
Before we do our round table, we have some really cute, fun questions. But before we do that, I think if there's anything else, I know Lindsay had some other things she wanted to say. This would be a good chance to have a discussion before we get to the fun ending.
Yeah.
Kelly's mom said that was very enlightening.
So I think a lot of us are probably wondering, what can we do now? How can we move forward? And I think that the best few things that we can do, that everyone can do right now, is, first of all, educate yourself. As Reji already said, educate yourself, and then educate those that you love and care about. This is not just educating yourself about the state of race now, but about the history. Educate yourself on the creation of race pseudoscience to understand, because we cannot really understand how it works, right, until we understand where it comes from and then how that's manifested over the years. So we can start there. And then next, don't be indifferent and don't be afraid of the uncomfortable. Martin Luther King talks about the fact that one of the most dangerous things was the silent white moderate. We need to make sure that we go on ahead and we say what we believe in. We take a stance. We advocate for our neighbors. But one of the worst things that we can do right now is to be silent. If you feel like something is happening that's not just, then go on ahead and see what you can do about it, and you can make a difference. And then lastly, call your representatives and vote. Please vote. Don't stay home.
Register people to vote. Talk to people who may not be registered to vote, and unify behind Joe Biden, who I know wasn't everyone's choice, but he is now everyone's choice. We have to vocally, enthusiastically support Joe Biden, who is not perfect, but it will be a major step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah.
Or the left direction.
Oh, my word.
Thank you. I had to make at least one pun. It's been an hour. It's been an hour since my last pun.
That is true.
Does anyone else have anything to add before we do our fun questions to wrap up?
I want to say thank you for true allies that are really stepping up. I know earlier in the green room we talked. It was so great getting to meet Lindsay and Wilson and to hear Wilson's story, and to hear him, like, even in the green room, talk about how communities are now starting to band together. Like, we've got to band together now. And about not just being the good minority or the good minority group of the many. We have to be one united front together, and that is inclusive. That unity includes the white community as well. It's not just the minorities versus versus the whites. No, it's everybody. This problem is not just a Black problem; it's an American problem. Yes, and so we all need to work together to make change happen, or it won't happen. It won't happen.
Yep. Absolutely. And I just really, it really feels, and I think, just again, educating yourself and speaking up if you see something wrong happening. I've just texted all my friends of color during this, and I've been like, I love you. I love you, and if you want to talk to me, I'm here. Because I felt like that was my duty to do that. Because it's important. And And I want to thank all of you guys for talking today. It was really beautiful what all of you guys said, and hopefully enlightening for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you should be texting your white friends to watch the episode.
Yeah.
I think that's the friends who are not white probably already heard these stories or lived the stories, but
Yeah.
I did not know the things that I've learned about Linseigh and Reji. I did not know the story, so I'm very happy we have them here. And I think it is time for our roundtable questions to end this episode with some funny stuff. So our first question today, and I'm going to answer it, and then I will go around in the circle. What is something that recently made you laugh? And I will say, number one, my girlfriend is very funny, and she makes me laugh all the time, and I don't know how I would get through this quarantine or life without her. But I have been watching this show One Day at a Time. I don't know if any of you seen it on Netflix.
I love it. The new version of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had been on my queue for a while, but now that there's very little on actual network TV, because as everyone knows, I still have cable because I'm old. I finally got around to One Day at a Time, and it's so funny. I love Rita Moreno, and I always like to watch a few episodes of that before bed. Until I run out of them, but I like to end my day with something funny, especially nowadays. So Kelly, what is something that has recently made you laugh?
I've been honestly so stressed out lately from everything going on. I've been very sad, to be honest with you, but I'm just going to be a huge sap right now and tell you guys that Will and I are very good friends, and we talk on the phone all the time, and we just crack each other up. We've been like each other's support throughout this whole quarantine. So I'm going to say our conversations have made me laugh. So
very
it's
sappy,
steal my answer.
very sweet. Reji, what is something that has made you laugh recently?
I'm trying to find it so that I can make sure I say it right. Okay. So there's this, first of all, like I was like, TikTok, what is that? And then my niece did like this dance, and I was like, so I was like, I've got to go on TikTok. Okay, fine. And then so as I was scrolling through, I came upon this guy. His name is Keats on TikTok, and he did this. What he does with videos, he like dresses in like different characters, but in a theme. So he was the planets. And
I know him.
Yes.
I know him.
I watched that and I laughed my buns off so hard. I posted a new one today that was like, I think it was is it the social media one or the Back to the Future, but black. And it's like he's all the characters, and it's just hilarious. And it's just the short videos, but I found myself watching the planets one, and then I watched the digital platforms one, and I was like doubled over, and I'm sitting on my couch just rolling. It was just that made me laugh. And so now I try to like look for new videos from him just so that I can laugh and have just take a moment away from having to deal with and feel all this stuff that's going on. So that's what's made me laugh. Keats on TikTok, so look him up. K-E.
I would if I was on TikTok, but
He's hilarious. I've seen his videos. He's so funny. Like he did this one that was like, what was it? It was like the different social media platforms and them arguing with each other.
Yep.
So funny. He's hilarious.
All right, Linseigh, what is something that has made you laugh recently?
I'm like Kelly. I'm going to have to say that my friends with whom I can only really communicate now through my phone, they've really been there for me. They've been checking in on me. They've been making me laugh every single day, especially those moments when, as I said before, the paramedics were always coming in and it got really difficult. And so to have somebody there, to have people there for me who could kind of help me escape for a little bit was so, so important. Just sending your friend like a little joke or something like sometimes can help them so much, especially now. So I definitely had to say them. And I love all my friends who are watching and those who will watch this in the future. I love you and thank you.
Again, sappy and sweet. Wilson, what has made you laugh? And are you going to say Kelly, or do you have a different answer?
Well,
No pressure.
I mean, since Kelly stole my answer, because literally she made me rolling on the floor laughing today. If I have to say another answer, I would have to say, well, I mean, like within my friend group, we basically just like share stories back and forth about what's going on, like ever since the pandemic happened, and now with the Black Lives Matter movement happening, and it really got us like really just kind of like sad and just like kind of lost all hope. And every now and then, someone would just drop in a meme, and all the tension would be like relieved for like a little bit until someone drops another like article describing what's going on. So I was like, I appreciate those like little breaks from the bad stories. And
Definitely.
Wesley agrees with me that TikTok is too millennial, and he says, "Great plug for your book." I didn't plug the book, but I could, but I won't. Not today. Thanks, Wesley. All right, Kelly. Kelly has the second question.
Okay, the second question is, if you could be any cartoon character in the world, who would you be? I came up with this question, and I'm kind of like feeling a little bit like maybe I should have came up with it, because like I have no idea what I would even say myself. I was like, oh no, I didn't even think about it. I think if I could be any cartoon character, I would be, if you guys have ever heard, I'm a big cartoon and anime dork, and I love this. There's a show called Star versus the Forces of Evil. I think I would be Star, because she's like this dorky, like magical girl with a wand, and she's just like this very whimsical character. And I don't know, she reminds me of myself, so I would be her. What about you, Reji? Do you have any idea who you'd be?
Wow, I was just thinking about that. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, okay, this is gonna probably.
We ask the tough questions here.
Like these are the tough questions. Okay, so mine is kind of based on, because it's something that I've always wanted to be able to do, but I'll never be able to do because I have a severe fear of heights, like forever and 8 days. But when I watched the movie Aladdin, watching him like jump on top of buildings, run and then ride on a magic carpet like in the clouds, I would probably die of a heart attack if I ever tried to attempt anything near that in real life. So I live vicariously through Aladdin. So probably you're probably Aladdin, and if not Aladdin, then a Care Bear, because even though back in the day that was my jam, Care Bears, and so if not Aladdin, then a Care Bear. Yeah.
What about you, Lindsay?
I would have to say Violet from The Incredibles, because she can become invisible. Think about how many free things you can do if you're invisible, right? You can go, support the arts, but like you can go to the theater for free. You can go to a museum for free. You could travel, you can get on the plane, go anywhere. It's more about, I guess, being able to sneak around a little bit. And then also when you just need some alone time and to kind of check out. And as an introvert, sometimes I do need to check out a little bit. So to be invisible for a little bit.
Yeah, I like that.
And Will, what about you?
Oh man, putting me on the spot.
You had
It's
some
so
time to
hard
think
because
about
like
it.
I know,
hard.
but I still didn't like. I can't single out like one from the top of my head. I want to say probably Spider-Man, because like
yeah, that's a
I want to
good
swing around buildings. I want to swing around buildings and see how that feels.
And Seth, what about you?
First off, Reggie's wife says a Care Bear. Question mark.
Is that a heart? Thank you so much. Right? Thank you. Yes, a Care Bear, baby.
I actually get the questions in advance, but I think it's cheating to think about them, so I don't think about them till now. I think that the cartoon character I resemble the most is probably Lisa Simpson, because she's a bit of a smart ass, and I'm a bit of a smart ass.
She's a musician.
She's a musician and an intellectual, and she has a cat. So I think I'm going to go with Lisa Simpson. Kelly's mom says LOL for Will. All right. So final question of our show. If you were a food, what food would you be? And I guess I have to answer this first, and I didn't think about it at all. I'm not going to say hot dog. That doesn't sound right. For some reason, I'm going for dollar pizza, and I don't know why, but I think I like to be available, and I like to be easygoing and easy to get, although I haven't gotten dollar pizza in a couple months. I'm affordable, and I'm delicious, but I'm not expensive. Like, I'm accessible to the public. Dollar pizza. All right, Kelly, what food would you be?
I honestly realized again, this is a hard question too. When I came up with it, I'm like, why am I coming up with these hard questions? I was thinking maybe I should just be what my favorite food actually is, and I'm like obsessed with like vegetarian dishes of all kinds because I'm a vegetarian, but that doesn't describe my personality. So I was thinking about it. I was like, I think it would probably be like a sushi roll because it's vegetarian. I actually also love fish, and sushi is artistic and creative and colorful. So probably sushi.
It's a good answer. A little fishy, but it's good nonetheless. And Audra says perfect. I don't know what that was toward, but we'll take it. Reji, what food would you be?
I think I would be salmon. And because at first, I mean, if before it's cooked, it's like it swims and it's strong because it can go upstream if it needs to. Like, I think that's pretty cool. But I think it's the most delicious food. Like, I could have salmon 7 days a week and be happy. I literally really can, and I think I did that one time when I lived in New York. I just got some salmon, a big old thing of salmon, and just like had salmon every day. And it's a little classy. Like, you go to a restaurant, you don't just order fish. If you order the salmon, it's a little classy. So I think that's the one I would choose.
All right. Kelly's mom says Kelly, LOL, about the sushi. Lindsay, what food would you be?
I would have to say peanut butter. Not just because you are what you eat, but because peanut butter, like, it latches onto stuff and it kind of just stays there and it's hard to move on. And sometimes I find myself constantly being like haunted by the past and like not really living in the present. I'm always like stuck thinking about my past memories and, so I think I'd have to definitely say peanut butter.
And peanut butter helps you get out of a jam.
It does.
Thank you.
That was about 13 minutes. That was 13 minutes. That was the last one.
All right, Wilson. Final answer of our day. What food would you be?
Well, originally I was going to say pizza because, like, I'm extra cheesy. But
I love it.
I would say a potato because it's so versatile. And, like, you can have it for any other occasion. Like, you want a fancy dinner, baked potato. You want breakfast, hash brown. You want, like, a holiday dinner, mashed potatoes. Like, whatever you want to be, potatoes, my boy.
Yeah, you're such a spud. And Audra loves all my puns. So thank you, Audra. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Wow, we made it.
Yes.
That's the best episode we've ever done, and it's because of you guys. And we really thank you for opening up, and hopefully it changed some minds out there. Maybe there were some stubborn people who were kind of like, what is going on? Because so many people are shouting in their face, you have to believe what we believe. And maybe this is a calmer way of helping people to learn. So thank you guys so much.
That's all we hope to do. Thank you guys so much for sharing all your stories and talking with us. Thank
you for listening.
Yes.
That's one of the best things you can do right now is listening, one of the most powerful things. And so thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to take our guests out. We're going to end the show. Bring back up the theme song before we play that. That was great, Kelly. We did it. We listened. So congratulations on a great episode. Whew.
Yeah, it was. I thought that was like the most powerful episode we ever had, and I'm so happy that we got to have this experience for sure.
Yeah, so thank you. It was your idea to do this, and I'm glad. I usually say yes when people say things, but this was. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like I'm gonna go have a good cry after this. And next week we'll be back to a little bit more levity. I think our topic is spirituality.
Yes.
Spirituality mentality. And we'll have some great guests. That's a topic, actually, I'm not a spiritual person at all. So that's another topic I will have to listen on.
It will be very fun.
Yes.
And I want to thank everyone else again for this amazing episode. And I'm so excited to hopefully see things continue to get better.
Yeah, and thank you for watching, to the people who are still there. And I know I'm going to send the link to every single white person I know and say, I think you need to watch this episode. And they'll be like, you say that every week. But this week, I really mean it.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll play our theme song and then we'll be gone. What day is it with Seth and Kelly? All right, have a good week, everybody.
Bye, guys.